I've never spoken to my son about his overseas business dealings.
Joe Biden has been blatantly lying about his involvement in his son's corrupt business dealing. And this is a big smoking gun.
It is Thursday, October 15th. President Trump calling on Joe Biden to release all records related to his son Hunter's business dealings with Burisma after leaked emails link him to the Ukrainian company.
And calls growing louder to investigate Facebook and Twitter for censoring the bombshell report as critics claim big tech is trying to rig the election.
And another blockbuster day expected on Capitol Hill. In hours, witnesses will testify for and against Supreme Court nominee Amy Coney Barrett.
A lot to break down, and we start right now. Here, I thought the last hour was warm up.
Nicely done. Well played. Well played, calling out inconsistencies in the musical choices. That makes the producers love
Who selected this song? I'm kidding.
We love both of you.
Good morning. You're watching Fox and Friends First. On this Thursday, I'm Jillian Mealy.
And I am Todd Pyro. The fallout growing this morning from that bombshell report on Hunter Biden's emails. President Trump now demanding answers from Joe Biden as the former VP's campaign denies any ties to Hunter's business in Ukraine.
Ashley Strohmeyer joins us live with the fiery reaction on both sides. Ashley.
Yeah, after the New York Post initially released those emails, President Trump followed up at a rally Wednesday night. He was demanding Joe Biden release phone calls, emails, and then everything in between in connection to his family's business dealings. Listen.
We've just learned through explosive documents published by a very fine newspaper, the New York Post, that Joe Biden has been blatantly lying about his involvement in his son's corrupt business dealing. And this is a big smoking gun.
Those emails showing the vice president's son, Hunter, was allegedly asked by a top advisor at Burisma whether he could use his influence to help stop politically motivated actions against the company. Another email from a Burisma advisor thanked him for, quote, inviting me to D.C. and giving an opportunity to meet your father and spend some time together. Emails obtained by Fox News also show Hunter Biden had plans to meet with State Department officials about the Burisma probe. The information was discovered by the owner of a computer repair shop in Delaware. The man claims Hunter Biden brought his computer in for service back in 2019 and then never picked it up. Once he found those emails on the computer's hard drive, he turned it into the FBI.
Is there any thought in your mind that this might not have been Hunter's and might have been somebody trying to set Hunter up?
No.
Okay.
No.
The Democratic nominee's campaign responded denying any wrongdoing and said, quote, the New York Post never asked the Biden campaign about the critical elements of this story. Meanwhile, the Senate Homeland Security Committee has launched an investigation into the validity of the emails.
And I take everything that our committee receives, everything I hear with a huge grain of salt, particularly when it's coming from countries like Ukraine that have a history of corruption. He contacted us the day after we issued our report. We have talked to him, but we're in the process of validating his claims. We take it all with a grain of salt.
And more backlash breaking out overnight. This after social media appeared to censor the story. The New York Post account completely shut down by Twitter, and users were blocked from sharing or distributing the report. Now, Twitter released a statement defending its block under its so-called hacked materials policy. The CEO, Jack Dorsey, apologized for the block, saying Twitter's communication was unacceptable. But as of this morning, the New York Post account is still locked down. Todd, Jillian.
I can't believe that, Ashley. That is wild.
Yep.
Thank you so much.
It is. Mm-hmm.
And what makes the email so potentially damaging is for months, Joe Biden has denied knowing anything about the work his son did overseas.
Mr. Vice President, how many times have you ever spoken to your son about his overseas business dealings?
I've never spoken to my son about his overseas business dealings.
In a July 2019 phone call, President Trump urged the Ukrainian president to investigate Hunter Biden, according to transcripts released by the White House.
And as frustration mounts over the censorship of this story, Senator Josh Hawley says Americans deserve answers from Facebook and Twitter about whether it was a ploy to help Joe Biden get elected. Listen to this.
Big tech versus democracy. I mean, that's what it is. These tech companies want to rig an election. They want to control what we read. They want to control journalists in this country. They want to control the news. And we just can't let them. And that's why I will be inviting and asking Facebook and Twitter to come testify under oath to my subcommittee in the United States Senate. The American people deserve answers. I've also asked the Federal Election Committee to open an investigation. You know, this looks like to me like an in-kind campaign contribution to the Biden campaign. I want to know, what contacts did Twitter and Facebook and others have with the Biden campaign when they decided to start censoring this New York Post story on behalf of the Bidens? This thing just stinks. It reeks. And this is going to pull the lid off, I think, on just the corruption surrounding big tech.
Hawley goes on to say he thinks the investigation will expose an even deeper history of political bias by big tech companies. In just hours, the final day of Judge Amy Coney Barrett's Supreme Court confirmation hearing will kick off.
The judge standing her ground as Democrats threw hard-hitting questions her way. Griff Jenkins, live in Washington with the highlights from day 3. Good morning, Griff.
Good morning, Jillian and Todd. And Jillian, you're right. Democrats did not hold back in that second and final day of questioning, accusing her of being fast-tracked to overturn Roe v. Wade, strike down Obamacare, and potentially help the president if election disputes arise. But they also broadened the topics. Vice presidential nominee Kamala Harris pressing Barrett on climate change.
Do you accept that COVID-19 is infectious?
It's an obvious fact, yes.
Do you accept that smoking causes cancer?
I'm not sure exactly where you're going with this.
Do you believe that climate change is happening and is threatening the air we breathe and the water we drink?
You have asked me a series of questions that are completely uncontroversial, and then trying to analogize that to eliciting an opinion on me that is a very contentious matter, and I will not do that.
Into revelation from Senator Klobuchar that Barrett and 2 other current justices worked on the historic Bush v. Gore case.
You, Justice Kavanaugh, and Chief Justice Roberts, who worked on behalf of the Republican Party in matters related to the Bush v. Gore case. Do you think that that's a coincidence?
All these questions, you're suggesting that I have animus or that I cut a deal with the president, and I was very clear yesterday that that isn't what happened.
And like yesterday, Barrett refused to go on the record on hot-button issues as Democrats tied her philosophy again to that of her mentor, Justice Scalia.
I hope that you aren't suggesting that I don't have my own mind, or that I couldn't think independently, or that I would just decide, oh, let me see what Justice Scalia has said about this in the past, because I assure you I have my own mind.
Judge Barrett is now done testifying. Now the committee takes the next steps towards confirmation. A panel of experts will appear today as Chairman Graham plans a vote in the committee a week from today. Todd, Jillian?
I think today's going to be ridiculously interesting, Griff. I can't wait to see how it all goes down. Griff Jenkins in Washington. Thanks.
And the St. Louis couple who waved guns at protesters pleading not guilty to firearms and obstruction charges. Mark and Patricia McCloskey say they were defending their home. They are due back in court on the 28th. The couple sporting Trump buttons while leaving court say they have talked to the president about the case. The governor of Missouri plans to pardon them if convicted.
The number of migrants caught illegally crossing the U.S.-Mexico border rising for a 5th straight month in September. Border agents say nearly 55,000 migrants crossed the border last month, making it the busiest September since 2006. This report comes as CBP says encounters with people illegally crossing the border are down 53%, bringing it to normal levels after a spike in 2019.
Hackers break through government networks and access election systems. Homeland Security and the FBI sounding the alarm, but officials say there is currently no evidence that elections data was compromised. The hacker groups are targeting government networks by targeting vulnerabilities in virtual private network products.
Trump supporters marching through New York City with the world's biggest Trump flag. Check it out. It's the one on the bottom, not the one on the top. Crowds of people chanting as they unveil the 75 by 50-foot flag in Times Square. That flag reading, Trump, law and order. Your thoughts, of course, on the march pouring in on social media. Tina tweeting, quote, awesome, wish I could be there. We love our great warrior president. And Vincent writing on Facebook, go get them, New York.
It is just about 10 minutes after the hour. The bombshell report about Hunter and Joe Biden, now the subject of a Senate investigation. Congressman Ralph Norman reacts to the latest twist in the Burisma scandal. Next. Good morning. Welcome back. The Biden family under scrutiny and facing a Senate investigation over reports suggesting Hunter Biden introduced his father, then vice president, to a top executive at a Ukrainian natural gas firm, Burisma Holdings.
Joining us live to react, member of the House Committee on Oversight and Reform, Congressman Ralph Norman. Congressman, thanks so much for being here. Let's take a look at some of the key emails to Hunter Biden. We begin with this one. We urgently need your advice on how you could use your influence to convey a message, signal, etc., to stop what we consider to be politically motivated actions. Again, that is from a Burisma executive. This one as well from a Burisma executive. Dear Hunter, thank you for inviting me to D.C. and giving me an opportunity to meet your father and spend some time together. All right, so we've got spending time together, meeting your father, using your influence. Congressman, is there any doubt in your mind that this was pay to play?
No, it's a perfect example. And he's on record denying this. He met with the leaders of Ukraine less than a year before he asked for the dismissal of the lead prosecutor. And here are the takeaways. If this had been a Trump family member, the press would be all over this. Why is big tech censoring this? Why is Joe Biden and Hunter Biden not getting on the news and explaining it? Because they can't. And to say it wasn't on his official calendar is really laughable. But it just shows how crooked, how pay to play it was. Joe Biden is a swamp. He's part of it. And it's amazing how the mainstream media has no interest in it. And again, had this been Donald Trump's family, it would have been front and center stage for the last 6 months.
The Biden campaign says Joe Biden carried out official U.S. policy toward Ukraine and engaged in no wrongdoing. The question is, do we ever find out the truth and all of the details about this, and what would it take to do so?
Well, and that's why this election is so important, Jillian. If this election, if Donald Trump does not win, you won't hear of it again. But get this, the son got $50,000 every 30 days. He got $3.5 million from Russia. China, he had some equity interest. So this isn't something, you can prove this. You can't just make these claims. And why he's not addressing it and why the mainstream media, other than Fox, name me one station that has taken an interest in it. And it's time to fight and it's time to uncover it. This is what people are sick of. This is what gives politicians a bad name. But again, it's only going to be pushed as long as Donald Trump's president.
Meantime, Congressman, the other top story, confirmation hearing for Judge Amy Coney Barrett, heating up with more tense exchanges over Obamacare. Take a listen.
But that's not my question. My question was, did you ever write or speak out in defense of the ACA?
Actually, my question was whether it poses an appearance of conflict, and voters might decide that there is an appearance of conflict.
You have said you have not made any agreements or statements to the contrary, but I will tell you, it is a cloud over your nomination.
Was the questioning from Democrats for a second day in a row all policy all the time, specifically there on Obamacare, but there were other policy issues raised? Is that proof positive that the Democrats literally view the Supreme Court as a policy-making body?
I watched it for 3 hours, Todd. The takeaway that I had was, one, Amy Coney Barrett is a perfect nominee. President Trump was a genius in nominating her. Two, she knocked out all these liberal senators with their crazy questions. She's got a fist in a velvet glove, and she took them on one by one. And no, it was a display that I haven't seen. And I tell you, the third takeaway, Ted Cruz did an excellent job. He would make an excellent Supreme Court nominee because he was, particularly when Senator Whitehouse was talking about dark money, he took dark money. So it was a great display of a lady, of a person who is intellect. She's tough. She handled it with ease. She didn't even break stride on anything. And, they tried to get her to fall into different traps. And Kamala Harris, asking about cigarettes causing cancer and climate change, she didn't fall for it. She's too smart for them. And actually, she made them look like idiots.
All right. Congressman Norman, thank you very much for joining us.
My pleasure.
Thank you, sir. Time now is 18 minutes after the hour. Pennsylvania's governor looking to legalize pot to boost the state's economy. But does it all add up?
A representative from a group that thinks the plan is nothing but smoke and mirrors joins us live.
know. We all want to change.
Welcome back. Joe Biden boasting a massive fundraising haul for September, raising over $383 million. This all comes after he shattered the previous record in August with over $364 million. Biden's campaign manager also announcing, the DNC entered October with $432 million in cash on hand. The Trump campaign and RNC have not released their September numbers just yet. And President Trump's going to award wrestling great Dan Gable the Medal of Freedom. Gable appearing alongside the president during his rally in Des Moines.
That's humbling because that's the highest honor. I'm used to winning and doing it on the mat.
Gable, an Iowa native, is a Pan American Games winner, NCAA champ, and Olympic gold medalist. Jillian, over to you.
Pennsylvania Governor Tom Wolf is calling for a third time to legalize recreational marijuana use, insisting it will help alleviate some of the pressure the pandemic is putting on his state. Joining me live is the Chief of Staff and Senior Policy Advisor for Smart Approaches to Marijuana, Luke Niforatos. Luke, thanks for being here. Appreciate it.
Hey, good morning, Jillian. Thank you for having me.
Good morning, of course. So what do you think about this idea?
You know, I just think it's a little ridiculous, to be honest with you. We're in the middle of a pandemic, and Governor Tom Wolf has spent 3 consecutive press conferences talking about people smoking weed during an illness that's supposed to affect your lungs. But let's just get the facts straight here. If you look at all the states that have legalized marijuana, and I'm living in Colorado, which is one of them, they're over $71 billion in the red right now in their state budgets. And if you were to ask former Colorado Governor John Hickenlooper, who's a Democrat who's running for Senate right now, he'd tell you, and he said this many times, the marijuana tax revenue is a drop in the bucket. I mean, we're getting less than 0.9% of our state budget in marijuana tax revenue. So this has not been the boon for any state that's tried this. So I think, we have to kind of look at the facts and say, this really isn't going to be a big boost for state coffers.
Let's take a look at this tweet from Governor Wolf. This was from October 13th on Tuesday, and this says, quote, in addition to providing a boost to our economy, legalizing adult use marijuana would help us restore justice to those whose lives have been ruined by marijuana criminalization. Does he have a point where that is concerned?
Legalization is really about making money for a small number of very rich people already. I mean, the people who are pushing this right now are really Altria, Philip Morris, the big tobacco industry. They own a large portion of this marijuana industry now, and they've supercharged weed, made it much more addictive, and they're targeting our youth by making this marijuana products like candies and gummies and ice creams, et cetera. So, it's not about social justice at all. We could have that conversation, and you look at, should we throw people in prison for having a joint in their pocket? No. We can look at decriminalization options there. But when you talk about full legalization, A, it's not been the revenue generator that people say it is. No state is making more than 1% of their state budget on this. And B, really, there's nobody that's making much money on this, as far as the little guys go. The people who are making all the money are the Altria, Philip Morrises of the world, and big alcohol and big pharma, who have all put billions of dollars into this industry, and they just want to get more people addicted to this drug. They're not interested in helping the states out.
So we've got about 20 seconds left, but we had a map up there, those 11 states that have legalized recreational marijuana. Of them, do you know any states where this is working, where it is a positive outcome for the people in the states?
I really wish so, but we've seen so many huge increases in marijuana impaired driving deaths on the road. Youth use of marijuana is skyrocketing in all of those 11 states. I should know. I'm a father of soon to be 2 kids, which I'm very excited for here in Colorado. And we're just seeing that the impact on our youth has been horrible. The impact on the roads has been horrible. And the tax revenues have been a drop in the bucket. We're losing money on these experiments so far in these states. So Governor Wolf needs to focus on opening up the actual businesses in his state right now and stop trying to line the pockets of big tobacco, alcohol, and pharma.
All right, Luke, thank you very much for your time, your insight. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Have a good day. Todd.
Jillian, time now 26 minutes after the hour. A media meltdown over President Trump's town hall tonight.
Are you as mad as everybody else is that NBC is doing a town hall with President Trump?
This is an outright embarrassing ratings ploy.
Stacey Washington from the Trump team responds next.
A performance tailor-made for the pandemic, the creative concert experience. Next.
Are you as mad as everybody else is that NBC is doing a town hall with President Trump?
I know who I'm going to be watching. So there you go.
Why on earth would NBC agree to do that. This is an outright embarrassing ratings ploy. You don't have to do it at the same time and then divide the country further by having them choose.
Media melting down as President Trump and Joe Biden gear up to take separate stages tonight in dueling town halls on competing networks. Joining me now with what we can expect, Black Voices for Trump 2020 Advisory Board member Stacey Washington. Stacey, it's always great to have you. Before I ask you what to expect, why are they so mad?
Well, because the president is really popular for someone that they hate so much. And so a lot of Americans are going to choose to watch the president and watch Joe Biden's highlights for later. So I think they're basically telegraphing that. And I think it's amusing, but it's also a testimony to just how much pull the president has with the American people. When he speaks, they want to listen. They want to know what he has to say.
ABC with this statement, I'm not going to read it in full, but basically they say NBC is doing a real disservice to the American voters who say they won't get to hear from both candidates. Putting Joe Biden aside, what is the president going to use his platform for tonight?
Tonight, the president is going to talk about his agenda for the second term of the Trump administration. He's also going to address a lot of the things, the tougher questions that he will be asked by the moderator. So I want to be clear here. The president gets tough questions at every single appearance that he makes when the mainstream media is hosting him. Joe Biden, on the other hand, he's not going to have tough questions about his son Hunter or Burisma or packing the court or how he would actually handle COVID-19 if he were to be elected. So the American people will tune in to the person who's actually going to give them answers, the person who's going to be grilled, the person who's never going to be given an opportunity to talk about what his favorite ice cream is or what steak he likes. He's going to have tough questions and he's going to answer.
Let's not forget about what's your favorite tree. Meantime, Stacey, Senate Homeland Security Committee investigating newly released Hunter Biden emails. As we know, Joe Biden has repeatedly denied a lot surrounding this situation. Take a listen.
Do you think it was wrong for him to take that position, knowing that it was really because that company wanted access to you?
Well, that's not true. You're saying things you do not know what you're talking about. No one said that. Who said that? There's been no indication of any conflict of interest from Ukraine or anywhere else. Period. I'm not going to respond to that. I've never spoken to my son about his overseas business dealings.
You're involved in the campaign. You know the campaign. Is this going to hurt the Biden campaign?
Well, I think it is going to hurt the campaign because what has been put forward, Todd, is that Joe Biden is really just a nice man who wants to be president. He's not corrupt. He's not mean. He doesn't even talk tough to people, which is all of those things are untrue. I mean, I'm sure he's a nice man, but all of the rest of that is just a narrative that's been shaped around him. And this story goes directly against that. We're talking about a laptop that basically was lost in the chain of custody because someone dropped it off to be repaired and then abandoned it. That hard drive has emails on it and videos and things that we can't discuss here on this good Fox News air that show things about Hunter Biden that directly contradict the statements that have been made by his father. So, of course, Americans are going to be interested in it. This close to the election with people still going and pulling their votes, they're going to take this into consideration, and I hope they do.
Stacey Washington, thanks as always, and thanks for keeping it PG. We appreciate it. Jillian, over to you.
Republican senators are now pressing the FBI and DNI for details on failed efforts to corroborate the unverified Steele dossier. Senators Ron Johnson and Chuck Grassley write that although key information was not supported, the FBI still used it to spy on former Trump advisor Carter Page. This, as Fox News learns, Bruce Ohr, who was the DOJ contact for Steele, retired from the department last month. Ohr left while awaiting a decision on a disciplinary review. The feds show off the biggest meth bust in U.S. history with 10-foot-high piles of drugs. The DEA seized more than 2,000 pounds in Southern California raids earlier this month. Agents said the bust was enough for a dose of meth for every man, woman, and child in the United States and Mexico. The bust was part of Operation Crystal Shield. Let's go to extreme weather now. A California heat wave is prompting officials to turn off the power for 53,000 customers until Friday. There are growing concerns the dry conditions will spark new wildfires in the San Francisco area, the last thing they need. More than 4 million acres have already burned so far this year. And with that, let's go to senior meteorologist Janice Dean. Janice, I mean, it's unbelievable to think that they could potentially not be out of the woods yet with these dry conditions.
Right, and you don't have the electricity on, and the temperatures are going to be very warm. They could actually set high temperature records today and tomorrow, especially for Southern California, with temperatures in the 80s and the 90s and the 100-degree range. That's going to be really warm. It's going to last today through tomorrow and into the weekend, unfortunately, with these really warm temperatures and without air conditioning. That's going to be really tough. Heat advisories posted for much of coastal California, all the way up towards Santa Rosa. So this is going to be an ongoing concern. Then you've got the fire danger that extends not only for California, but back into the Rockies and the Great Basin. So this is a story, unfortunately, that's not going to go away. We're not getting any moisture into these areas that really need it. We'll continue to keep you up to date. Todd, Jillian, back to you.
All right, JD, thank you very, very much.
And now take a look at this. Rock and roll taking on a whole new meaning at this concert. Fans of the Flaming Lips literally rocking and rolling inside giant inflatable bubbles at a show in Oklahoma City.
Band members also performing in their own bubble in an effort to follow social distancing guidelines at the concert. What do you got? I got
nothing. What?
Who knew that the Bubble Boy episode of Seinfeld would be so prophetic?
I don't even know where to get a bubble like that.
The Bubble Boy episode of Seinfeld. It's Moops. Moops.
There you have it.
Time now, 36 minutes after the hour. You like that one, Matt, huh? A Trump supporter booted from a flight after he took his mask off to eat.
I mean, this is a grave moment in American history. This is actually a declaration of war by the big tech companies. This is an in-kind donation in the hundreds of millions of dollars to the Joe Biden campaign. These are rules that are flatly false on their face. Think about the material that you laid out. Hacked material is not to be distributed on Twitter. Does that mean that Edward Snowden's account is going to be locked immediately? Does that mean that the Pentagon Papers could not be published? Does that mean that FBI, COINTELPRO? Let's even think about this. They said that Twitter said that they could not distribute the story because they couldn't verify the origins. So does that mean that every single story based upon anonymous sources out of our government is going to be locked and banned from Twitter or slowed down, as they put it, from Facebook? No. These rules are selectively enforced in a political manner by the most powerful people and the most powerful companies on earth.
Facebook and Twitter censoring users from sharing the New York Post story on Hunter Biden's emails.
When called out on it, Twitter CEO Jack Dorsey called his company's communication lapse on the issue unacceptable. Carly Shimkus here with all the details. Carly. Yeah, right, guys. And, you know, to be clear, Twitter CEO Jack Dorsey says that the company made a mistake and that they didn't explain why they were blocking the story. But that doesn't mean he thinks that the company was wrong to block people from posting this story. Twitter released some more posts saying that they took action against the article because it included images that had private information in it, like email addresses. They also cited that hacked materials policy. Facebook also limited this Hunter Biden expose. Spokesperson Andy Stone posted a tweet on it, actually, saying this story is eligible to be fact-checked by Facebook's third-party fact-checking partners. In the meantime, we are reducing its distribution on our platform. A New York Post editor posted a tweet sounding off saying, this is a big tech information coup. This is digital civil war. Meantime, Independent Women's Forum senior policy analyst Patrice Onwuka had this to say on Fox and Friends First earlier in the show.
Well, thank goodness that Jack Dorsey actually stepped up and put his personal feelings about President Trump aside to hold accountable his own company for a decision that was really silencing and censoring the media. I mean, we do have First Amendment rights, and part of that is a free press.
So a lot of lawmakers, guys, demanding answers. The official Senate Republicans' Twitter account posted a tweet directed at Jack Dorsey, simply saying, we'll see you soon.
There you go. Meantime, Merriam-Webster changing its definition of sexual preference as Amy Coney Barrett gets called out for using the term. Take a listen.
I have never discriminated on the basis of sexual preference.
Sexual preference is an offensive and outdated term.
Yeah, okay, so after Mazie Hirono called Amy Coney Barrett out for using the term sexual preference, Merriam-Webster Dictionary changed the definition to include the word offensive, leaving many to point out that usually dictionaries define the words, not lawmakers. Now, the dictionary says that they were scheduled to make this change anyway, but they did it early because there was attention surrounding this phrase. So that's their story, guys, and they're sticking to it. All right, let's talk about this here. There's a man who's booted from a flight for removing his mask to eat. Yeah, this is pretty wild, guys. So this cell phone footage, like you said, Jillian, shows that this Trump supporter, he was wearing a, I believe, Black Voices for Trump hat and a Trump mask. He was kicked off the flight because he took his mask down to eat a snack. Take a look.
Can you tell us the policy that prevents him from taking his mask off while he's eating, please?
I was not here. The president, the crew has denied.
Okay, but you're seeing him with eating, so please tell me the policy.
Yeah, so that was a passenger really came to his defense later in the video, guys. Another passenger is filmed saying, I was sitting here the whole entire time. He took his mask down just to eat some, peanuts, just a snack. But Southwest released a statement saying that he was reaccommodated to another flight after he agreed to the mask policy. Questions remain over this one, though, because, you are allowed to take your mask down to eat on flights typically. So, so still some questions to come on this one.
I just don't get why we can't all figure this out. There's human bodily things that you need to do, like eat and drink. And if you do it quickly, pull the mask down. I mean, everybody should be on board. One standard. But what do I know?
Thanks, Carly.
Thanks, Carly.